I'm Jackie.
I'm Kyle, and we have...
Selective attention. We love a good rivalry.
Yeah, we often find ourselves posing the question, who would win in a fight? And then we mash two parties together inside of imaginary Thunderdomes in our brains.
Fortunately for us, we live in a time where movie studios have done a lot of this imaginative work for us by creating large budget films centered around this very concept.
Yeah, we're talking, like King Kong versus Godzilla, Freddy versus Jason, and a match made in intergalactic heaven. Alien versus Predator. But we wanted to go one step further than just having these behemoths slug it out.
Oh yeah, because we're nerds. And we wanted to do math.
Indeed.
This is how it works. Kyle and I came up with a criteria to grade 4 Alien films and 4 Predator films. 4 Predator films because that's all there is.
There's only 4.
And 4 Alien films, the first 4. And while there is 6... we're not going to count those prequels. It also wouldn't be fair against Kyle's 4.
No, so 4 against 4, even playing field. Mm-hmm. We're also going to leave out the Alien versus Predator movies, not because they're not canon, but because we want this to be an even fight comparing one franchise with another.
We built rubrics because we have subjective opinions about this. These are our opinions about the movies. Mm-hmm. And so we wanted them to be at least in a criteria that is aligned.
Yeah, we wanted to keep things relatively civil and objective. And that's more fun, honestly, for us than arguing about subjective opinions anyways.
Exactly.
The categories are filmic quality, mythology, storyline, and character.
It's pretty simple. We'll be giving a score of 1 through 3 for each category, 1 being the lowest, 3 being the highest.
Our rubric is detailed, and if you want to look deeper into it, you can actually pause now to see what is in each cell.
We each carry 3.
3.
3.
1, 2, 3.
Upgrade points with us for which we can subjectively throw out if we so feel like it. Maybe a film had a really great line of dialogue or a badass action scene or maybe an edit or a cut or something that we just feel went above and beyond. We can apply this point. Are you ready?
I think so.
Okay.
We're not being jerks. All of our notes are on our phone. Mm-hmm. So if we're scrolling through it and referencing them, that's what's happening. We're
looking at our rubric.
Yeah. Hello, and welcome from the future of this video where we realized that we had so much content.
We talked way too much.
But that's okay, because we decided to split this video into two
parts. In the first video, we'll go over the first 2 films that we both select, and we'll wrap up the final 2 films, as well as give a conclusion and the results in the part 2.
First selection is 1987's Predator, written by John McTiernan and Jim Thomas, and directed by John McTiernan. Predator's greatness lies in its simplicity. It's not groundbreaking cinema by any means. It's actually what I would like to call like the purest, leanest form of action cinema during a decade that was built around one-liners, shoot-'em-ups, and
dudes.
Muscles, yes, big dudes. In that regard, Predator is so much fun. You will have a blast watching this. There's quite a few lines of dialogue and some things that happen that are a bit passé, but for, being a product of its time, it's in there.
It does exist.
It's there. In regards to film quality, this, along with Die Hard, First Blood, and Terminator are kind of the compasses for action films of that particular decade. I am inclined to give it 3 points. Just based on what it is, this is what action cinema was during the time, and the filmmakers accomplished that. In regards to mythology, there's nothing to build upon here, but this lays the ground for some super cool alien stuff. And whereas it's not building on anything because nothing's been established yet, it does produce a lot of what the heck is that type of elements. What's it doing here? Why is it only attacking a certain sex? Why does it have those kick-ass toys? It's like the Batman of the alien world. The alien itself is kind of one of the coolest things. And when you go even deeper into, the comic books and stuff that comes afterwards, and you learn more about the Yautja. Did I pronounce that right? I don't know.
Idea.
I'm not really sure. That is canon, but it's like it's in like the comics and that sort of thing.
No, it doesn't get said in the movies.
I'm not going to embarrass myself and say that for the rest of the thing, but if you want a little bit of trivia, there it is.
Wow, thanks.
Not a lot of it is actually explored in this first movie. I mean, hardly any of it, but it sets the pace and it lays the groundwork for something that could be really, really awesome and a contender for one of the more badass aliens of all time. And the first time that mask is taken off the alien and you see the little pinchers and its eyeballs shoot up and it's one...
Ugly motherfucker.
Along with like the Gill Man, it's one of my favorite creature designs. It gets a 3. Storyline, it's simple. Government cover-up of some stuff. Dutch goes into the forest with an elite team of dudes. They got to do the thing. And then it turns out that that's not the thing they were there to do. Pew, 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 smashy, smashy, explosions, and you got yourself a Predator movie. It gets a 2. Lastly, characters. This is an ensemble piece. That's pretty much it. You got a bunch of dudes and one woman. Surprisingly, because, it's not like women make up more than 50% of the population.
But not in the 80s in films.
You got Arnie, you got Carl, you got Jesse, you got Shane, they're a bunch of cool actors, but they're flat characters. Aside from like survival, there's not a lot that you get in terms of like motivation. It gets a 2. Oh,
Kyle's got an upgrade point.
I got an upgrade point. That's right. I'm gonna give this 1 upgrade point for being just for being the OG, like just and being sort of like the poster child for badass back in the day. From Arnold's Zolit cigar and the chopper to having muscles push the frames to their absolute limit, to some of like the most quotable lines of dialogue.
Come on, kill me, I'm here! Come on, do it now, kill me!
I gotta give it 1 point.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot in this, because we'll get into the chopper.
Get to the chopper!
Giving it a grand total of 11 points.
11 points for Predator.
Not a bad start.
My first selection is Alien from 1979, directed by Ridley Scott, written by Dan O'Bannon, who previously worked on Dark Star with John Carpenter and would go on to direct and write Return of the Living Dead and write Total Recall. The cinematography was by Derek Vanlett, who basically, this was his only film he did, and it blows my mind. H.R. Giger and his creature design and visual work is on full display in this film, and it continues throughout the entire franchise. First off, I just want to say, as far as filmic quality, this is going to get a 3. It is just so slow, atmospheric, moody, and haunting from the very beginning. We aren't even introduced to human characters first. It just spends its time just going around the Nostromo, and the sound effects, the sound design, everything, editing is just top-notch at its highest quality in this film. Next, we move on to mythology, and Alien has a really deep, strange mythology, and it's all set up, of course, in this first film and by Dan O'Bannon. One of those mythologies is the xenomorph itself. Where does it come from? And how unknowable it is. It is so strange. Nothing about it is knowable. Everything seems to be like the antithesis of humanness. There are no eyes to look into, and every single piece of it seems designed to kill us in some way. We also have the Weyland-Yutani, or the company, that's set up in this as well, and it's just as insidious as the alien itself. It is a villain in almost every one of the subsequent films, and says a lot about the world that we are living in and are experiencing within the Alien franchise. Mythology goes, this gets a big old 3 as well. As far as storyline, I have to go back to O'Bannon, and I'm gonna read a quote of his about the story. He wasn't so much interested in promoting a feminist agenda as he was in avoiding hideous cliches of past monster movies. The worst cliche is always having a beautiful woman victimized by your monster, feeding the sexual fantasies of the director, usually, and allowing the male contingent of the audience to feel really safe. and he wanted to make sure that the very first person or individual to be impregnated by the xenomorph had to be a man. I'm really just absolutely overjoyed with the storyline of this. I love that the last 3 characters that make it to the third act are 2 women, Lambert and Ripley, and a black man, Parker. We also have a film that tickles or hints at almost every fear a person could have. You have isolation, you have manipulation and disregard, body horror with like pregnancy and a parasite. You have infection. You also have a monster and being hunted. It's got it all. So as far as storyline goes, Alien also gets a 3. To quickly talk about characters, I'm going to say right up the top, this also gets a 3. You have very likable and understandable characters in this film. They're all just working men and women, and they're all just out there to get a job done. And more so than any subsequent films, these are characters you can relate to and understand and really get behind. I also have upgrade points to give to this film, and I'm actually giving it 2 upgrade points.
Holy smokes.
I know.
Right off the bat.
One is because there is a cat.
Jonesy gets his own point.
Jonesy gets his own goddamn point. We get to see a death from the point of view of a cat, and that he is not forgotten. She goes back to make sure she can at least leave with one other living thing.
Yeah.
And I also want to give the other point because of just how terrifying this film actually is and how much it still actually scares me and gave me real life phobias that I live with. So it gets 2 points for a grand total of 14.
Wow. Second selection is... Oh, duh, it's the second one in the franchise. Predator 2, 1990, written by Jim and John Thomas and directed by Stephen Hopkins. Predator 2 is... Oh, boy. We're being objective, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it is...
Interesting.
If Predator's here... How do I say this? It's hard. I'm so sorry. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. The slogan for the whole movie, it's fine. It's a bit of a step backwards from the original Predator. So as far as film quality is concerned, Predator 2 is... It's okay. There's some really interesting editing choices, particularly a scene in the graveyard with Danny Glover. But overall, I mean, there's nothing to write home about in terms of the filmic quality of this movie. If anything, because of those strange editing choices, I'm actually going to give it a 1.5. I'm going to give it my first half point because it's not quite neutral and it's not quite awful. It's somewhere in the middle. The mythology portion of Predator 2 doesn't kick in until that third act, although there are a few things that do precede it, like the hunt throughout LA and the scene on the subway where the Predator abstains from killing the female cop because she is pregnant. But it isn't until Gary Busey and his team show up that the mythology kicks into high gear. Busey's team comes in and kind of gives Danny Glover the rundown of what's going on, how the government's been tracking. It actually confirms government cover-up and those sorts of things that are kind of alluring to the Predator franchise. That really badass mythology moment winds up coming really late in the third act, where Danny Glover's character winds up on the Predator ship in the final battle. And you see the different skulls from the creatures that the Predator has
Hunted
over time. And you get your glimpse of the xenomorph hanging on the wall. So actually right now, 1 upgrade point for the xenomorph on the wall. Boom, right there. But then also later on, you get introduced to some of those other classifications of predators that I was talking about earlier with the elder predator. This is a hunting party that goes to a territory to lay traps and hunt, basically. So in that regard, mythology, 3. Oh boy, as far as storyline is concerned, I gotta give it a 1. There's not a lot going on. You could argue that there are some interesting things happening in regards to the parallels between the jungle of Predator 1 and the urban jungle of Predator 2. Aside from that one interesting setting change, the story itself is pretty cut and dry. It's hot in LA.
It's so hot, and it's just gangs.
It's just hot gangs.
Hot gangs.
First scene is bonkers, with dudes just like doing rails of cocaine with like automatic weapons and like absolute insanity the way that they depict Los Angeles. As far as characters are concerned, this gets a 1. In a bit of a role reversal, you have Danny Glover playing a character that is fairly akin to Riggs in Lethal Weapon. In this film, he is now the maverick cop that, blows up 3 city blocks, that takes matters into his own hands and is a complete renegade, but he gets the job done. Unfortunately, that is not where the cliche train stops. You could kind of replace every character with your vegetable of choice and it wouldn't actually have made any sort of difference. I know Bill Paxton's in here. He's got some jokes. They're there. He's got some suits that he wears. But aside from that, there's not a lot going on with his character. It's not a lot going on with Danny Glover's character or any of the others. You've seen them all before, and even in those instances, they're not your favorites, so why would they be in this movie? So that brings me to a grand total of 7.5 for Predator 2.
My second selection, which is Aliens. So it's more than one alien.
There are multiple.
This is 1986. It's written and directed by James Cameron. The cinematographer is Adrian Biddle, who went on to do Willow, Judge Dredd, and Event Horizon. But this was, I believe, his first, once again, movie he was the director of photography on. So let's get into it. I want to state up front that I have a problem with this film.
Oh, okay. Already. Here we go.
I know that this is, I'm pulling up my sleeves. I know that this is a lot of people's favorite of the franchise, and it is fun. It is a fun film. I find it fun, but I also find it really long and like mentally exhausting to watch it. I have seen it about 3 times in my life, and every time I end it feeling just kind of bleh about the whole situation. As far as filmic quality, there's nothing wrong with it. There really isn't. It's filmed nicely, there's good action shots, there's interesting special effects, and there's some really good hero moments.
Get away from her, you bitch!
But it is very long and plotting at times, and so it's getting a 2. Moving on to mythology, I'm actually going to be giving Aliens a 3. It does do well. It does add to the mythology of aliens. If anyone had the question, where did the eggs come from?
Answered.
This film answers it. It also completely adds to the Weyland-Yutani, the company. Once again, they do not care about human beings. They only care about the bottom line. It also says some really interesting things and adds onto the idea of androids and AI. As far as story line goes, you can follow it. It deals a lot with the company kind of moving the things along. Like, they want money, so they're like colonizing this planet, which we know is a bad idea. It almost makes me just want to talk more about the characters because the storyline is so character driven. I'm gonna give storyline a 2. It's fine. Because it's so character driven, I'm gonna kind of switch gears. From what I just said, you might think I'm gonna give it a high score, but I'm not. I'm giving it a 1.5. And while I get to see some really cool things with Ellen Ripley, our main character from the first film, she has PTSD. This makes sense. She gets to grow a little bit, but it's almost like a reversal in growth because you just realize that everything's so hopeless that you're just becoming something that fits this world and this creation. So she comes to the end to realize that, like, yeah, she's going to take care of Newt, but her only thing in life now is take care of Newt and fight aliens. And it's kind of sad if you think of it. But she gets a lot of really badass moments. Like I said, I like her in this film. I like Newt and I like Bishop. But otherwise, every single character in this film is a military cliche. And this is my personal opinion, but every time this kind of comes up in a film, it usually just feels like an excuse to use sexist and racist language. And it's like, oh, but they're just military guys. And oh, it's a military woman saying it, so it's not sexist. But it just grates at me. And so I can't in all good conscience grade this higher than a 1.5. I do have one quick last thing to say about character, and that is Bill Paxton. Bill Paxton in this film is hilarious. He is not a character, he is a mood. Brings my grand total to 8.5.
8.5.
8.5. Right. Don't attack me.
Let's be nice. Thanks again for watching this video. If you are as excited as we are to figure out who wins
the franchise matchup of the century for us. I don't know. It's a two-part video. Watch this one and then watch the second one.
That's how two-part videos work.
Yeah.
The next part will be out real soon. In the meantime, if you want to follow us on Instagram, there you go. Otherwise, we'll see you for part 2.